Congratulations on being here, because what you are about to discover can change everything. God has something powerful for you today, something that goes beyond the ordinary and the expected. Imagine receiving a blessing so great that it defies all logic. That is exactly what is reserved for you, but there is one important detail. This opportunity is here now, and it may not be here tomorrow. How many times have we let something amazing slip by because of doubt or inaction? God is speaking directly to you today, saying that this is the moment to touch His house and release a miracle in your life. Don't let it pass you by. Now you might be thinking, is this really for me? Let me assure you that it is. This type of message defies any logical understanding, but those who dare to believe are the ones who receive. The house of God is where miracles happen, and He is inviting you to take a step of faith. This is your opportunity to see the impossible become reality. It is no coincidence that you are here now, and it is certainly not chance that brought you to this message. God has great plans for you, but it's up to you to take the first step and touch what is sacred. This is a divine call that comes with a promise of quick reward. God is not asking you to understand everything. He is asking you to trust. By touching the house of God today, you will be activating something in the spiritual realm that will resonate in all areas of your life. Think about how many times you have heard of miracles, and now imagine that your turn has come. But remember, this moment will not last forever. It is a window of opportunity that will soon close, and you don't want to look back and wonder what could have been. This is your moment. Don't let it slip away. Imagine receiving a message directly from heaven, one that can truly change the course of your life. This message carries with it such powerful force that, when listened to attentively, you begin to see opportunities that previously went unnoticed. Often, we are so immersed in daily concerns that we stop hearing what really matters. The key is to open your ears and heart to receive what God has prepared for you. Every word spoken in this message is loaded with divine purpose, waiting to be unleashed in your life. The importance of this message lies in its ability to transform your reality. Think about those moments when everything seems to be uphill, where solutions seem distant and hope scarce. It is precisely in those instances that this heavenly message can be the light guiding your steps. It is not just about pretty words, but a call to action, to make decisions that can bring profound and lasting change. By allowing this message to penetrate your life, you'll be opening the door to new possibilities that may have been hidden all this time. But listening is not enough. Action is necessary. How many times have we heard words that inspired us, but did nothing about them? This message invites you to take concrete action, to take a step of faith that could lead you to a completely new place. It is no coincidence that you are hearing this now. God has a purpose for you, and this is the time to discover it. By taking this message seriously, you could be on the brink of experiencing a significant change in your financial, emotional, and spiritual life. The true power of this message lies in its ability to touch the deepest parts of your being. Sometimes what we need is not more information, but a new perspective, a different way of seeing things. This message has the power to shake your limiting beliefs and open you up to a new reality. Imagine what your life would be like if you could see every obstacle as an opportunity, every challenge as a blessing in disguise. This message offers you that possibility, but it's up to you to accept it and let it transform your life. It is natural to have doubts when hearing something so powerful. You might wonder if this is really for you, if you are worthy of receiving this blessing. But remember, God does not show favoritism. This message is for all who are willing to listen and act. No matter how difficult your path has been up until now, there is always a new opportunity waiting. This is your moment to receive what heaven has for you, a gift that can change everything, if you are willing to open your heart and receive it with faith. This message is not just for you, but also for those you love. By sharing this truth, you can become a channel of blessing for others. Imagine how your home, your community, could change if everyone aligned with this divine purpose. By receiving this message and acting accordingly, you're not only transforming your life, but also positively impacting those around you. Do not underestimate the power of a well-received divine word. It can do more than you could ever imagine. This heavenly message is not something to be taken lightly. As you listen, pay attention to what stirs in your heart. You may feel an uneasiness, a call to do something different. That is the voice of God guiding you toward what He has prepared for you. Perhaps it is time to make bold decisions, to take steps you once feared. Remember, every great change begins with a small action, and today, that action could be simply paying attention to this powerful message. By receiving this message, you are being invited on a journey of transformation. This is not just about a superficial change, but a deep renewal that can affect every aspect of your life. God has a plan for you, one that includes prosperity, peace, and a renewed purpose. But this plan only unfolds when we are willing to listen and follow His directions. This message is the first step on that path, a path that promises to lead you to a place of abundance and fulfillment. In life, not every day presents an opportunity like this. Sometimes, blessings come in unexpected ways, and it is up to us to recognize and accept them. This message is one of those hidden blessings, waiting to be discovered. Do not let it go unnoticed. Take it with both hands and allow it to guide your decisions from now on. In doing so, you could be starting a chain of events that will lead you to a more fulfilling and satisfying life. It is easy to get carried away by routine and forget that there is a greater purpose in everything we do. This message comes to remind you that your life has a deeper meaning, one that is intertwined with God's divine plan. By aligning yourself with this purpose, you will be opening the door to a life of greater meaning and purpose. This is not just any message, it is an invitation to elevate your life to a new level, one where faith and action work hand in hand to bring extraordinary blessings. Every word of this message has been carefully selected to speak directly to your heart. It is no coincidence that you are hearing it now. God knows what you need at this moment. Sometimes, the only thing standing between us and our blessings is our unwillingness to listen. This is your moment to change that, to open your mind and heart to what heaven has to say to you. In doing so, you could be unlocking a new level of peace, prosperity, and purpose in your life. This powerful message from heaven is not something you should keep to yourself. Sharing it with others could be the key to multiplying its blessings. It is a call not just to receive, but also to give, to be a channel of blessing to others. In this act of generosity, you may find that your own blessings multiply. As you reflect on this message, you may feel a strong connection to what God wants to do in your life. This connection is more than just a feeling, it is a confirmation that you are on the right path. By following this divine guidance, you are aligning yourself with the greater purpose that God has for you. And when you align yourself with His plan, you begin to see how everything fits together, how even difficulties can become opportunities for growth and prosperity. This message is just the beginning of something much bigger. As you move forward, keep in mind that every word you hear has the power to change not only your life, but also the lives of those around you. It is a reminder that God has a plan for you, one that is full of hope and promises. But for those promises to be fulfilled, it is necessary to take the first step: listen, believe, and act. This is the beginning of a new stage, one in which God has great things prepared for you. Let this message be the push you need to make real changes in your life. Do not let doubt or fear stop you. God is calling you to something greater. You may feel like you do not have everything figured out, but do not worry. no one does. The important thing is to take that first step, trust that God is in control, and move forward with faith. This is just the beginning of an incredible journey, one full of blessings and opportunities that await you on the other side of the door. God has enormous plans for each person, plans that go beyond what we can imagine. Often, we find ourselves trapped in the routine, believing that life is just what we see day by day. But God sees the big picture. He knows every detail of our lives and knows exactly what we need to experience true transformation. These divine plans not only include material blessings, but also a deep peace, a joy that does not depend on circumstances, and a renewed strength that comes from above. It is easy to forget that we are part of something much bigger. The difficulties we face can make us lose sight of the purpose that God has for us. However, even in the darkest moments, God is working on our behalf, preparing the way for something much better. His plans include not only our financial prosperity, but also a spiritual transformation that allows us to live fully. When we align our lives with His will, we begin to see how everything makes sense. How every challenge prepares us for a future full of blessings. God never makes empty promises. His plans are full of promises, and each one is a reminder of His faithfulness. You may not see how the pieces fit together at this moment, but trust that God is orchestrating everything for your good. He not only wants to give you what you need, but also what you deeply desire in your heart. But to receive those blessings, it is necessary that we trust His plan, even when we do not fully understand it. It is in that trust where we find the strength to keep going, knowing that God has something great prepared for us. It is important to remember that God's plans often require patience. We live in a world that values immediacy, but the most valuable things often take time. God calls us to trust in His perfect timing, to wait with faith, and not to be discouraged when things do not go as expected. Every delay, every obstacle, is an opportunity to grow and strengthen our faith. God does not forget His promises, and when the time is right, He acts powerfully, opening doors that no one else can open. It is in that moment when we see how His plans exceed our expectations. God's plans also include challenges, but those challenges are part of the transformation process. Sometimes, God allows us to face difficulties to strengthen us and prepare us for what is to come. It is not easy, but every challenge is an opportunity to depend more on God and less on our own strength. As we face those challenges with faith, we discover an inner strength we did not know we had, a strength that only comes from God. That is the beauty of God's plans. They not only take us to a better place, but also transform us into better people. God has a unique plan for each person, and that plan is specifically designed for us. It is not a generic plan. It is one that takes into account our strengths, weaknesses, dreams, and desires. God knows what makes us happy, what fills us with purpose, and His desire is to lead us to a full and meaningful life. However, to align ourselves with those plans, it is necessary that we are willing to listen to His voice and follow His guidance. God speaks in many ways. And when we pay attention, we can discover the path He has mapped out for us, a path that leads to true prosperity and peace. In life, sometimes we feel lost, not knowing where to go. But God never leaves us without direction. His plans are like a map that guides us through moments of uncertainty. We may not always understand each step, but we can trust that God knows what He is doing. He sees what we cannot see and knows what is best for us. By trusting His plans, we find a sense of security and peace that nothing else can offer. This is the kind of trust that transforms lives, that allows us to move forward with courage, knowing that God has everything under control. Every day is a new opportunity to align ourselves with God's plans. No matter what has happened in the past, God is always willing to guide us toward a better future. He never tires of us. He never gives up. His love is inexhaustible, and His plans for us are good. Sometimes, all we need to do is take a step of faith, trust that God has a perfect plan, even when we do not understand it. In doing so, we open the door to a life full of blessings, a life where money and spiritual prosperity go hand in hand, reflecting the goodness and generosity of God. It is possible that God's plans will lead us down unexpected paths, but those paths always lead us to a better place. God knows what we need before we ask, and His desire is to give us the best. Sometimes, the best is not what we expected, but in time, we see that it was exactly what we needed. God guides us in mysterious ways, and although we do not always understand His plan, we can be sure that it is for our good. This kind of trust frees us from fear and anxiety, allowing us to live with a peace that only God can give. God's plans are not just for the future, they are also for the present. He wants us to live in His fullness right now, enjoying the blessings He has already prepared for us. We do not have to wait to experience His goodness. It is available to us today. By opening our hearts to His plans, we begin to see life in a different way. Concerns about money and material needs fade away when we trust that God will provide. This is the kind of life God wants for us, a life filled with peace, joy, and abundance. When we think about God's plans, it is important to remember that they are rooted in His unconditional love. God does not give us what we deserve. He gives us what we need, and He does so with a heart full of love. This love is the foundation of everything He does for us. Even when we do not understand His ways, we can trust that His love will always guide us toward the good. This kind of love transforms lives, gives us purpose, and fills us with hope. By living in that love, we find a freedom and peace that nothing else can offer. Life can be uncertain, but God's plans are firm and secure. No matter how many changes we face, we can trust that God never changes. His plan for us is constant, and He is always working in our favor. This certainty gives us the strength to keep going, even when things get tough. By trusting in God's plans, we find a stability that allows us to face any challenge with faith and courage. It is this trust that leads us to experience a truly full and blessed life. God not only has a plan for us, but He also gives us the necessary resources to fulfill that plan. As we walk in His will, we discover that we lack nothing. God provides in unexpected ways, opening doors and connecting us with the right people. This provision includes both the material and the spiritual, and when we recognize it, our faith is strengthened. Trusting in God's plans also means trusting in His provision, knowing that He always takes care of us and gives us exactly what we need at the right time. God walks with us every step of the way, guiding us and giving us strength when things get tough. His presence is our greatest strength, and by trusting in Him, we find the peace and purpose we long for. This is the kind of life God wants for us, a life full of meaning, where every day is a new opportunity to experience His goodness and love. By aligning ourselves with His plans, we are opening the door to a truly full and blessed life. God's timing is perfect, even though we may not understand it. In times of difficulty, it is easy to despair and think that things will not improve. However, God is always working, even when we do not see it. He has a detailed plan for our lives, and every challenge we face is part of that plan. The key is to trust that God knows what He is doing, even when our circumstances tell us otherwise. It is common to want things to happen immediately, especially in a society that values speed. But God operates on a different timeline than ours. He sees the big picture, while we only see a part. When we learn to trust His timing, we experience a peace that does not depend on circumstances. This trust allows us to move forward with faith, knowing that, even if we do not see immediate results, God is preparing something better for us. God not only knows our needs, but also the exact moment when we should receive His answer. Sometimes, the delay is a way of preparing us to receive an even greater blessing. It can be difficult to wait, but when we do so with faith, we discover that God's timing is always the best. While we wait, God is working in us, strengthening our faith and preparing us for what is to come. This process transforms us, making us stronger and more capable of handling the blessings He has for us. Waiting is not always easy, but it is during those times that our faith is strengthened. God calls us to trust Him, not only when things are going well, but also in moments of uncertainty. Every time we choose to trust His timing, we are taking a step toward a deeper faith. It is in that faith where we find the strength to overcome any obstacle. God is never late. His timing is always perfect, and when we learn to trust Him, we experience a peace that surpasses all understanding. Trusting in God's timing also teaches us to be patient. Instead of fighting against time, we learn to wait with expectation, knowing that God is orchestrating everything for our good. This patience is not passive. It is an active faith that allows us to move forward with confidence, even when we do not see the whole path. By trusting in God's timing, we are saying that we believe in His wisdom, that we trust His plan, and that we are willing to follow His guidance. This trust transforms us, giving us an inner peace that nothing else can offer. God never rushes, but He is never late either. His timing is always perfect, and when we trust Him, we discover that His plan is much better than we could have imagined. Sometimes, what seems like a delay is actually a blessing in disguise. God knows what we need and when we need it, and when we learn to trust His timing, we see how everything fits together perfectly. This trust allows us to live without fear of the future, knowing that God has everything under control. It is a trust that gives us the freedom to enjoy the present without worrying about what is to come. God's timing also teaches us to be grateful. When we look back and see how God has worked in our lives, we realize that every moment of waiting was worth it. God never leaves us without an answer. His answer always comes at the right time. By trusting His timing, we learn to be grateful for what we have now, instead of always wanting more. This gratitude fills us with peace and allows us to live with a contented heart, knowing that God is always working for our good. Trusting in God's timing frees us from the need to control everything. When we trust that God has a plan, we can let go of our worries and live with a freedom that only He can give. This freedom allows us to enjoy life, knowing that we do not have to have all the answers. God already has everything figured out, and when we trust His timing, we discover that life is much more beautiful and less stressful. It is a trust that leads us to rest in the certainty that God is with us, guiding us every step of the way. God's timing also teaches us to be humble. We recognize that we do not always know what is best for us, but God does. This humility allows us to accept that we will not always get what we want when we want it, but we can trust that God will give us what we need at the perfect time. It is a lesson often learned over time, but once learned, it transforms our perspective on life. By trusting God's timing, we find a peace and joy that does not depend on our circumstances, but on our relationship with Him. Trusting in God's timing also means letting go of our expectations. Sometimes, we hold on so tightly to how we believe things should be that we lose sight of what God really wants for us. But when we let go of those expectations and trust that God has a better plan, we experience a freedom that is truly liberating. This freedom allows us to live with hope, knowing that God is working on something beautiful, even when we cannot see it. It is a trust that transforms our way of living, leading us to a place of peace and satisfaction in God. God has a purpose for every moment of waiting. Although we may not always understand why, we can be sure that God is using that time for our good. Waiting teaches us to trust Him in ways we could not learn otherwise. By trusting His timing, we are saying that we believe in His love and goodness. This trust gives us an inner strength that allows us to face any circumstance with faith and hope. It is a trust that leads us to live with a heart full of peace, knowing that God always keeps His promises. Trusting in God's timing also teaches us to live with purpose. Instead of seeing waiting as wasted time, we learn to see every moment as an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to draw closer to God. This perspective allows us to live each day with a sense of purpose, knowing that God is working in our lives, even in the moments when we do not feel it. By trusting His timing, we discover that life has a much deeper meaning and that every day is a gift full of possibilities. Trusting in God's timing prepares us to receive His blessings. When we trust that God knows what is best for us, we are opening the door to receive all that He has to give us. This trust allows us to live with an open heart, ready to receive and to give. It is a trust that frees us from fear, anxiety, and doubt, and leads us to live with a peace and joy that only God can give. By trusting His timing, we are saying that we believe in His love, goodness, and plan for our lives. The prosperity that God offers goes beyond the material. It is a prosperity that encompasses both the financial and the spiritual. God sees your faithfulness, especially when you give with a generous heart, as you do when you tithe. This act of faith is not only an obedience to His word, but also a seed you sow in His kingdom. God promises to honor that faithfulness by bringing abundant blessings that manifest in all areas of your life, including your financial well-being. Money is a tool that, when handled with wisdom and under God's guidance, can bring great blessing. True prosperity is not measured only by what you have, but by how you use what God has given you. God does not need your money, but He uses the tithe as a way to teach you to depend on Him. By giving, you are acknowledging that everything you have comes from His hand. This attitude of gratitude and trust transforms your relationship with finances, leading you to a place of peace and security, knowing that God always provides. By tithing, you are placing your finances under God's protection and blessing, ensuring that you will always have enough for your needs and to bless others. Financial prosperity is also linked to spiritual prosperity. When you prioritize your relationship with God and follow His principles, your finances reflect that blessing. God gives you wisdom to manage money, avoiding waste and impulsive decisions. This wisdom not only helps you manage your resources well, but also prepares you to receive more. When you are faithful with little, God entrusts you with more, knowing that you will be a good steward of His blessings. It is easy to focus on money as an end in itself, but God calls us to see it as a means to a greater end. Money, in the hands of a generous and obedient heart, can be a powerful instrument for doing good and expanding God's kingdom. By using your resources to bless others and support causes that glorify God, you are investing in a type of prosperity that has an eternal impact. This is true wealth, the kind that does not fade but multiplies in transformed lives. God wants you to live in abundance, but that abundance is not limited to the material. True abundance includes peace, joy, healthy relationships, and a clear purpose in life. When you follow God's principles, your life is filled with these blessings, and money becomes a resource that God uses to manifest His goodness. By trusting God with your finances, you are laying a solid foundation to live in the prosperity He has designed for you, a prosperity that encompasses both the visible and the invisible. The act of tithing is a declaration of faith. By giving 10% of your income, you are saying that you trust God to do more with 90% than with 100%. It is a step of faith that activates God's promises in your life, bringing provision and blessings in ways you could not have imagined. This principle has been tested over time and continues to be a source of financial miracles for those who practice it with a sincere heart. By tithing, you are sowing into God's kingdom, and that seed always bears fruit. God honors those who are generous, not only with their money but also with their time and talents. When you give what you have, no matter how small it is, God multiplies it. It is a spiritual principle that defies human logic, but has been proven time and again. Generosity opens the door to prosperity because when you give, you receive much more in return. This is God's economy, an economy based on faith and obedience, where giving always results in abundance. Sometimes, the path to financial prosperity can seem long and difficult, but God promises to walk with you every step of the way. He gives you the strength and wisdom needed to overcome challenges and guides you toward decisions that will bring blessing. It is not just about making money but managing it in a way that honors God and benefits others. By trusting God with your finances, you are securing a future full of provision, where every need is met and every blessing is multiplied. Spiritual prosperity is the foundation on which financial prosperity is built. When your life is aligned with God's principles, everything else falls into place. This does not mean that you will not face challenges, but it does mean that you will have the wisdom and strength to overcome them. God wants you to prosper in all areas of your life, and that begins with a strong relationship with Him. By cultivating that relationship, your finances will also flourish, reflecting God's goodness and faithfulness in every aspect of your life. Tithing is a powerful tool that God uses to teach you to trust Him. It is not just an obligation but an opportunity to see God move powerfully in your life. By tithing, you are saying that you believe in God's promise to provide for you, and that faith is rewarded with abundance. This act of obedience not only blesses your finances, but also your spiritual life, leading you to a place of greater intimacy with God and greater trust in His provision. God sees your heart when you give. It is not about the amount, but the attitude with which you do it. When you give with a joyful and grateful heart, God delights in blessing you. He promises that what you sow, you will reap, and that harvest will be abundant. This is a promise you can claim with confidence, knowing that God is faithful to His word. By giving, you are sowing into God's kingdom, and that seed always produces fruit, both in this life and in eternity. The prosperity that God offers is comprehensive. It is not limited to finances but encompasses all areas of your life. God wants you to prosper in your health, relationships, work, and of course your finances. By following His principles, you are creating an environment where His blessing can flow freely. This is true prosperity, a life filled with God's presence, where every need is met, and every blessing is multiplied. It is a prosperity that is not only seen in the material, but also in the peace and joy that fill your heart. Money is a means, not an end. God wants you to use it for His glory, to bless others, and to expand His kingdom. When you do, He promises to provide for all your needs and more. By aligning your finances with God's principles, you are securing a future of abundance, where provision never runs out and blessings flow without end. Challenges are an inevitable part of life, but it is in those moments that faith becomes our greatest ally. God never promised a life without difficulties, but He did promise to be with us in the midst of them. Every challenge is an opportunity to strengthen our faith, to learn to depend more on God and less on our own strength. When we face obstacles with faith, we discover an inner strength that can only come from above, a strength that drives us to keep going, even when everything seems to be against us. Faith is not just an abstract belief. It is an active force that moves us to act. Facing challenges with faith means making decisions based on the trust that God is in control, even when we do not see a clear way out. It is easy to become discouraged when things do not go as planned, but faith reminds us that God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating everything for our good. By keeping our faith in God, we not only overcome challenges but also grow and strengthen in the process. God uses challenges to shape us and prepare us for what is to come. Every obstacle we face is an opportunity to grow in faith, patience, and wisdom. Sometimes the challenges are so great that they push us to the limit of our abilities, but it is in those moments that God manifests most powerfully. He does not leave us to face difficulties alone. He gives us the strength and guidance needed to overcome them. By trusting God during difficult times, we draw closer to Him and discover new dimensions of His love and power. Overcoming challenges with faith also means changing our perspective. Instead of seeing obstacles as insurmountable problems, we can see them as opportunities to experience God's faithfulness. Faith allows us to see beyond our current circumstances and trust that God has a greater purpose. By facing challenges with this mindset, our faith is strengthened, and our capacity to overcome trials expands. God never allows a challenge without also providing the strength and resources to overcome it. God calls us to walk by faith and not by sight, especially when facing challenges. Often, circumstances can seem discouraging, but faith allows us to see beyond the visible. When we trust God, we are not swayed by what our eyes see but by what we know is true, that God is faithful, that He loves us, and that He will never abandon us. This trust is what sustains us in the midst of trials and gives us the strength to keep going, knowing that God has a purpose in every challenge. Challenges also teach us to depend more on God and less on ourselves. It is easy to trust in our own abilities when everything is going well, but when we face difficulties, we realize our need for God. This recognition is not a sign of weakness but of wisdom. By depending on God, we discover that His strength is perfect in our weakness and that His grace is sufficient to sustain us. This kind of faith frees us from the burden of having to do everything on our own, allowing us to rest in the assurance that God is in control. After everything you have heard, the question is, are you ready to apply this knowledge and see real change in your life? God has spoken and given you the keys to unlock blessings that exceed your expectations. But knowing is not enough. It is time to act. What are you willing to do today to get closer to those miracles that God has promised? Sometimes all it takes is a small step of faith to see great results. Remember, faith without works is dead. Now is the time to put into practice what you have learned and witness the transforming power of God. Do not let doubts hold you back. If you feel that something in your life needs a change, this is the time to do it. God has given you direction. Now it is up to you to make the decision. What is He calling you to do? What area of your life needs that divine touch? Think about the promises you have received today and make a commitment to yourself to move forward with faith and determination. You are not alone on this journey. God is with you, guiding you every step of the way. If this message has resonated in your heart, I encourage you not to keep it to yourself. Share it with those who also need a miracle in their life. And do not forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to continue learning and growing in your faith. Every day is a new opportunity to discover more of what God has for you, and together we can move toward a life full of purpose and blessings. Do not stay still, act today and watch how God works wonders in your life.